always try to do is maneuver that group in the middle to go in one direction or the other so that we can win the election. And I think that's what we have to do with globalization too. We have to work on the politics of it because there's always going to be that gap. There's always going to be.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so I think actually you're hitting on an important point, which is that now, particularly in the information age, is that business can, and individuals can conduct economic activity that is literally invisible to government. And in sometimes, hey, we know it's happening, but it's encrypted, so we can't do anything about it. And government will always be reacting to new forms of industry. And we didn't create auto regulations until someone invented an auto and sold a bunch of them. And so now we're at that point where we have these new technologies like blockchain that's out there that has extraordinary opportunities for creating massive amounts of new economic activity. But federal laws in the United States, I don't think, contemplate blockchain. Right now in the United States, actually last year after I went home from Horasis, I went and checked. Wyoming is the only state in the country out of 50 that has passed blockchain laws, and they put 6 on the books. And I was looking forward to doing that in Maryland. I got thwarted, but it's really it's an exciting opportunity for folks to go out there and to create this economic activity. But government has got to figure out some way to make it happen. But at the same time, you talk about, hey, we got to take care of the tax loopholes is what we do. That's kind of the game for legislators, and we have a very difficult time, and Amazon is the best example of it. So when you have companies like Amazon that are doing online sales, and if they have a warehouse in Pennsylvania, if I go online in Maryland and I buy something and it's delivered from a warehouse in Pennsylvania, there's no state sales tax, right? And Amazon isn't really required to pay that state sales tax or included in the transaction until they built a warehouse in Maryland. As soon as they did that, then they existed inside of the state. Now they're aware that Maryland, oh, you guys have sales tax, now we gotta pay it. So these are all things that are going to become increasingly complex as our economies become increasingly sophisticated.
Joe, would you have anything?
Anybody who's had a British education, and I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but anybody who's had a British education knows the analogy of the hedgehog and the foxes. The idea that the hedgehog knows one big thing, one idea, and the fox is out there sort of synthesizing a myriad of inputs and able to analyze very quickly all of these different inputs while the hedgehog just sort of plods on. I think that is still operative if you look at globalization. But I think perhaps a more apt way to look at it is that globalization, and this is not my idea, I should say, this is an idea that was postulated by somebody, a fellow by the name of Prad Khanna, who writes books that I read and I remember. Friction and flow. If you think of globalization is all about flow. It's about being connected. It's about seamless movement of goods, services, people, capital, ideas around the world with minimal intrusion by government. Government, and I've worked for the government for 37 years, government is by definition friction. Government is start with sovereign borders, begin with a wall, add up to your protectionist legislation. The Senator just said it. Tax loopholes is what we do. A tax loophole is nothing more than friction on business. It stops the free flow of business. It gives a particular industry or a particular company a benefit that it doesn't give to others. I think that, and that's a pretty esoteric idea, but I think it's useful when you raise the very good question of how does government begin to address the issues of blockchain? God bless the senator for raising blockchain in the Maryland state legislature. I'm sure it was met with resounding stares of Joe Sixpack going, huh? What are you talking about? How much am I gonna get? No, we wanna raise the daily, wage, and I need more time off. I come back to my point. The most important thing, any society, but I feel most urgently, because I am an unabashed American nationalist, I am a patriot, I do believe in America first, but not America alone. The most important task we have is that Joe Lunchpack understand your question. And right now, we sadly don't have it. Do you know what this opinion, not fact, in my view, the single greatest thing that the United States did in the last 75 years, and we've done a lot. We've done a lot for good, we've done a lot not so good, but the single best thing that absolutely every American will say, yeah, we got that right. It was called the GI Bill. GI means general issue. It's what we call our soldiers. A soldier in the United States who came out of the Second World War, who came out of Korea, who came out of Vietnam, was eligible for college credits. My old man, my dad, went to school on the GI Bill. That was a transformative, visionary way that the United States was able to create the CEOs of Industry 3.0. How are we creating the CEOs of Industry 4.0? Sadly, I would say that when we have a tax on education, when we have Luddites in charge, when we have people who believe that education can be paid for if you go to Wharton, can be paid for if you go to school like I did, but is not a birthright of Americans. In simple English, we're screwed for the future. Happily, I don't think we are, because there's a lot of people who want Joe Sixpack to understand blockchain legislation.
Thank you very much. I'm relieved that you managed to pivot off after saying we're screwed, into a more jollier note. So thank you on behalf of all the Joe Sixpacks and lunchboxes even then. Now, if I may invite